The Trump administration just appealed a ruling from a Trump-appointed federal judge that threw out an aggressive Justice Department lawsuit. That lawsuit had tried to sue all 15 federal trial judges in the state of Maryland. Now, the underpinning of that case, Maryland courts temporarily blocking the Trump administration from quickly deporting undocumented immigrants if they challenged their removals. Now, that ruling was on full display in the case of Kilmar Abrego Garcia this week. That's the undocumented immigrant who lived in Maryland, who is now in ICE custody as he challenges his deportation, threatened to go to Uganda. It's a country where he has absolutely zero ties. Joining us now, CNN crime and justice correspondent Katelyn Polantz and CNN senior legal analyst Elie Honig. And Katelyn, let me start with you. This judge laid out some rather fiery statements in this rebuke of the Trump administration's unusual lawsuit. And just to remind people, this is a Trump-appointed judge.
Two-time Trump appointee, Thomas Cullen, a conservative royalty in the state of Virginia, brought into this special case overseeing it in Maryland. And his opinion today was, get this out of this court, full dismissal. It doesn't belong here. And he wasn't going to let it go forward resoundingly. He writes, none of these cases that the Justice Department was arguing in this case support the executive's theory that it can sue federal judges simply because it disagrees with how they carry out their constitutional and statutory duties. To hold otherwise would run counter to overwhelming precedent, depart from longstanding constitutional tradition, and offend the rule of law. That's a pretty strong statement from Judge Cullen in this. Backing up what this was about is that it's not a normal case. This was in Maryland, where the chief judge of that district just earlier in the Trump administration said, there are a lot of detainees in immigration proceedings coming to us with emergency requests to not have them deported so that we would be able to look at those cases. And the chief judge said, okay, we're going to pump the brakes for 2 days and just put a hold on the U.S. sending any of those people out of the country to a place like potentially Uganda or another country. The Justice Department, instead of appealing that, they sued the whole lot of judges in Maryland, all 15 judges on the federal district bench. Cullen, he's at the same level. And so he's saying, I don't have the ability to stop these other judges that I'm colleagues with, also trial level district court judges. And then also he says, this is not what the country is about with 3 branches of government. We should not just be fighting against each other, the justice system versus the chief executive. Another thing he writes, regrettably, this lawsuit effectively pits 2 of the branches against one another. One branch's alleged infringement on another's exclusive power does not license a constitutional free-for-all. He did note that the Justice Department, if they have a problem with this order from the judges in Maryland, they can appeal.
They can appeal. Elie Honig, could a different judge have seen this differently?
Jake, I legitimately do not think a single federal judge in this country would see this differently. And by the way, the appeal that was just filed, they're going to lose. Like, I try to not do predictions. The Trump administration will absolutely lose that appeal. You know, the expression that we're all focusing on is constitutional free-for-all. I actually don't even think that's quite right, because a free-for-all suggests something haphazard. It's more like a constitutional mockery, what happened here. When the district court judges in Maryland made this ruling that Trump did not like, what he should have done is appeal. Instead, what he did is essentially say to the judges, you should shut yourselves down. And the basis that this judge dismissed Trump's lawsuit on is 2 things. He said, you don't have standing and you don't have cause of action. That translates to you have no business in this court, and the thing you're asking us to do is not even a thing that exists in the law.
And Elie, obviously the case of Kilmar Abrego Garcia has been getting most of the attention. You write of the unraveling of the prosecution against him. You say, quote, seemingly in recognition of its criminal case, the Justice Department has already begun to construct an off-ramp for itself. They've now laid the groundwork for a full-scale retreat.
Does President Trump have legal cause to fire a member of the Fed's Board of Governors? Right now, we don't know. But the answer to that question will have major implications for the global economy. Today, an attorney for Fed Governor Lisa Cook announced a lawsuit challenging President Trump's attempt to fire her over allegations of mortgage fraud. In a statement, Cook said, quote, President Trump purported to fire me, quote, for cause, when no cause exists under the law, and he has no authority to do so. I will not resign, end quote. The Justice Department has said it plans to investigate the allegations, but Cook has not been charged and denies all wrongdoing. Still, this afternoon, President Trump insisted that even the appearance of potential fraud was enough to fire her.
She seems to have had an infraction, and she can't have an infraction, especially that infraction, because she's in charge of, if you think about it, mortgages, and we need people that are 100% above board, and it doesn't seem like she was.
Just moments ago, the Federal Reserve acknowledged that Cook is challenging the president's firing. Here's the statement. A spokesperson said this, quote, "Long tenures and removal protections for governors serve as a vital safeguard, ensuring that monetary policy decisions are based on data, economic analysis, and the long-term interests of the American people. As always, the Federal Reserve will abide by any court decision." Now, this is the first time in American history that a president has attempted to fire a Fed governor, and there's a reason for that. All around the world, governments, companies, banks, they expect the Fed's decisions about monetary policy to be, for the most part, if not entirely, non-political. But President Trump wants lower interest rates, and he wants them yesterday, basically. He has spent months publicly insulting Fed Chair Jerome Powell. The firing of Cook marks a dramatic escalation in his attempt to assert control over yet another American institution.
Look, the Federal Reserve, as is, has historically been the best. And one of it is because it's independent. It's very difficult to try to get them to do something they shouldn't do. But if you think that you're going to wake up one day and discover that the Justice Department may or may not be indicted, it's highly embarrassing. It's terrible to find out that you might be charged by the Justice Department, but you don't know. But the president's taking swift action. It's very intimidating.
Intimidating indeed. All right, my panel is here. They're going to join in just a moment. We're going to start with CNN's Jeff Zeleny, who's outside the White House, CNN's Phil Mattingly, who is here for us in the D.C. Bureau. And Jeff, let me start with you because, of course, we were listening to, it was a lengthy, shall we say, cabinet meeting. What more are we hearing? What more is he saying about the decision to fire Lisa Cook, or try, I should say?
3 hours and 17 minutes as the clock goes, one of the longest, at least public sessions of a cabinet meeting. But it was the comments about Lisa Cook that certainly caught our attention. Look, her term was expected to go until 2038. She was, of course, nominated by President Biden, confirmed by the Senate. It was a 50-50 vote. Vice President Harris had to break the tie back in 2022, but her term is just getting started. What President Trump clearly has been making many moves to take control of the Fed, obviously blasting Jerome Powell at every turn, calling him too late. He's accusing him of being too late in lowering interest rates. Well, clearly, the president and the White House have been making steps to try and exert their control really throughout the government. But the Federal Reserve is a different matter because, of course, it's the central bank, but it's also independent. A U.S. president has never removed a governor on the Federal Reserve before. So this is certainly entering new legal territory, and it looks like it will go, obviously, through the courts, likely to the Supreme Court. And the question now is what happens between now and then. The president said he's firing her for a cause, citing mortgage fraud. Of course, that is unproven. No crime has been charged or convicted or proved to be committed. The Department of Justice is apparently investigating, but it's about what happens in the interim. The Fed is meeting for the next meeting in mid-September. Will the White House try and seat someone else? Officials are not telling us exactly what the president's plans are as this is litigated. But Casey, there is no doubt about it. The bottom line, the president wants to control the Fed.
All right, so Phil Mattingly, help us understand exactly what this means. I mean, you noticed when you were watching this, I presume you watched all 3 hours and 17 minutes of this cabinet meeting. Correct me if I'm wrong. But you seem to notice a sort of caution that the president was using when he was talking about his authority here?
Yeah, the reason this stood out to me is I did watch all 3 hours and 17 minutes, and the only thing that the president wasn't expansive on in his commentary was Lisa Cook. and his decision to attempt to fire her, to move to fire her last night. And that caution, and especially paired with the very cautiously and legalistic way the letter that he sent or posted on Truth Social last night at 8 p.m., to Jeff's point, the sheer lack of information about next steps, how this moves forward from people around the administration, inside the administration, underscores the reality of this moment. While the president and his team may believe that they have this authority, as kind of up in the air as that is, and questioned by legal experts that it is, there is no precedent for this. There is no roadmap for this. Nobody's totally sure how this moves forward. What we are sure of, though, is while this is based on what the president referred to as an infraction, not saying it was mortgage fraud like some of his advisors, it is clear what he wants from it. And he actually laid it out, talking about one existing opening on the Fed board and a potential second. Listen.
We just put a very good man in one position. We might switch him to the other. It's a longer term, and pick somebody else, but we're very happy with the person we have in there. And we'll have a majority very shortly, so that'll be great. Once we have a majority, housing is going to swing, and it's going to be great. People are paying too high an interest rate. That's the only problem with housing.
Casey, I point that out because I think it's really important to keep that in mind. There is a lot of unknowns and a huge number of questions and a very intensive debate.
Trump's taken a big L here. He's taken an L in court, and he's about to take another one. Because again, the firing of this Fed board member is not a question of his constitutional power. Because in this one, he doesn't have the power to fire her. There's been other decisions where it's like Trump makes a decision to fire this person or cut this thing in the budget line. And in some cases, he has that prerogative because it's clearly an executive power. And in others, he doesn't because it's subject to congressional oversight. Like Trump is in charge of spending certain money, but if he wants to just eliminate some programs, he needs to go to Congress to actually do the job of cutting it from the budget. If you can get Congress to do it, then he's in charge of administering now the no program. But if there's a program that exists, he has to administer it, blah, 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 blah. But with her, it's like he needs to fire her for cause. And I don't think he's demonstrated it, especially since he's an employee of the federal government. And anything that he's accusing her of doing, he's actually done. You want to talk about alleged mortgage fraud? One of some of the criminal cases against him and or his company revolved in part around how he systematically overvalued his properties to get better bank loans, and yet simultaneously when it came time to pay taxes, he again, at least according to some of the cases against him, would systematically undervalue his properties to lower their property value tax. So he was dipping on both ends. That sounds like the big old F word to me, Donald, the big old fraud to me. And so this is not going well for him. And again, it's a sign that his plans are not working as smoothly as he thought. He really did feel, I had total control. It was over, especially when it came to people on the Republican side and the judges I appointed, they would bow down 100% of the time. And that hasn't been the case. He will continue to face resistance, and he will not respond well to that resistance.